Hey everyone, it's Fraser, the psychic medium, and welcome back to my channel. Today, we're going to be talking about what happens when you die. And more importantly, what is the final moment of death like? This is something that so many people have asked me about because maybe you know somebody who was dying here in this world and was so afraid. They were so afraid to leave this world. They were so afraid of what was going to actually happen when they passed away. Or maybe you've been there in the final moments of a family member's life and you're wondering, what did they see? What did they experience? This is the hardest thing that we go through as humans, is actually being there when someone is taking their last breath. Because we see death as final. The last thing that we see as humans is someone taking their last breath and then all of a sudden their heart stopped beating. But what I can tell you is that there's this amazing thing that happens after a loved one passes away. And that is that your soul lifts up and out of your body and your soul starts to transition to the other side. Now, you may have heard psychics and mediums talk about this. You may have heard them talk about transitioning to the other side. Well, what does that mean? Transitioning actually means when a soul lifts out of your body and transitions onto the other side, meaning that you leave your body here in this world and your soul enters into this unseen space of the spirit world. But what I want you to know is that it's not something that happens as drastically as we see with our human eyes. What I mean is that there's actually something that happens even before you pass away. I've seen this with so many people. And this is that our loved ones, our spirit guides, and our angels actually prepare us for our journey back to heaven before we take our last breath here in this world. So I want to share with you all about this. And first of all, I want you to leave it in the comments. How many of you have been in the presence of a family member who is taking their last breath? How many of you have been in the presence of a family member who is getting ready to leave this world, that was getting ready to depart? They had a lifelong illness, or maybe they had a short battle with illness for maybe a year or so. And all of a sudden, within the last few weeks of their life, they started acting a little bit strange. They would all of a sudden talk to people that weren't there. Maybe it is that you walked in on your mom or your dad or your brother or your grandfather that was passing away, and you could hear them talking, and you were thinking that someone else was in the room. And then when you went to go and see them, you were like, hey, mom, who are you talking to? And they're like, oh, nobody. How many of you have had the experience where your loved ones have talked about someone who had died way before their time, or before they actually left this world? For example, maybe it is that your mom was talking about a grandfather that she never met, but all of a sudden said that he came to visit her. Maybe it was that your dad was talking about your mom who passed 2 years ago, and all of a sudden he was talking about how she had came and visited him and told him some stories. What I want you to know is that this is real. What's actually happening is that your loved one is getting ready for their journey back home. They're being prepared. What's so beautiful is that before a loved one passes away, the same way that we get signs here in this world, right? The doctors call, we start to see a loved one starting to decline. We start to see these visual side effects that happen when a loved one is sick and dying. And we start to be close to them and get close to them and spend time with them before they pass away. Well, that same thing happens in the spirit world. The same way that we know when a loved one is going to pass, right? If they've had a lifelong illness or a long-term illness, or maybe just a short-term illness, but we knew that death was imminent, we start to spend more time with them. We start to be by their side. We start to get close to them more. Well, the same thing happens in the spirit world. What's so beautiful is that your loved ones in spirit don't want anyone to pass alone. They don't want anybody to pass and feel scared, upset, anxious, nervous. So when souls are close to death here in this world, it's almost like a little light flashes on the other side. Not literally a little light, but all of a sudden when someone is getting close to passing and their body is starting to shut down or starting to make its way to a point where they're going to leave this world, words are hard today. All of a sudden, what happens is that your loved ones in spirit on the other side come and be with that person who's here in this world. So for example, this normally happens about 3 or 4 weeks before a loved one's passing. The month that a loved one is passing away, you might notice that they start to experience the other side. They might say things to you that totally don't make sense, like, oh, get a chair over here, get a chair, the little girl's visiting me. And you're like, what little girl? And they're like, that little girl over there. And you go to look and there's no little girl. But then when you ask family members, they might have said to you, oh yeah, grandma lost a sister, that was a little girl way back in the day. Or maybe what happens is that you walk in on your mom or your dad and they start talking about all of these names that you don't know any of the people that they're mentioning. And the next thing you know, you find out that it was a friend of theirs that had passed or a neighbor that had passed. What I want you to know is that these are the signs that souls are getting ready to transition because those on the other side are coming to visit that person. And what's really interesting is that I've noticed that when souls go through this that are dying here in this world, meaning that if your mom or your dad or your sister, your brother is starting to get these spirit visitations from the other side, it's not a scary experience for them. It's actually very comforting. When they see their mom that had passed 10 years ago, their grandfather that had died 50 years ago, when they see a child that they lost many, many years ago, to them, it's a beautiful comfort. Because to them, they don't realize or connect the dots and think, oh my God, I'm dying. Oh my God. What they think in their mind is, oh my God, it's so good to see you. Oh my God, I can't believe you're here. And if you've ever been in the presence of someone who is dying or leaving this world, you'll actually see that expression on their face. All of a sudden, it's like this glow comes over and they're so excited to see somebody. I've had so many readings where the person who is dying or about to leave this world starts to reach up and reach to someone right before they take their last breath. I've also seen it happen where somebody was passing away and all of a sudden they, for the one time, opened up their eyes and just smiled like someone was there and greeting them. I've also seen it happen where souls will actually talk about before leaving this world. Will say, "Hey, I'm going back with dad, or I'm going to see my mom, or my mom's here," and they'll actually verbalize these things. But sometimes souls don't verbalize these things because what I can tell you, and I've seen this happen so many times as a medium, is that remember, just because a loved one is passing away, they also are afraid to tell you certain things because they don't want to scare you, upset you, or make you think that they're going crazy. So, for example, a lot of times people will think that these interactions that people have before they pass away, of seeing people who are departed or seeing people who had died many years ago, is actually just the medication. Or they'll think that they're having some type of a side effect to the illness, or that, the illness suddenly went to their head, when really it's not like that at all. What's actually happening is that your loved ones are getting these spirit visitations because these are the teams of people that are going to be there to help your loved ones to the other side. I've seen souls that were so afraid to die here in this world, that were afraid to close their eyes, afraid to go to bed because they were afraid that they weren't going to wake up, afraid to have a family member leave the room, always had to have the television on or something playing in the room so that they could hear, so they knew that they were still alive. That's how fearful I've seen some people were about death and dying. But then all of a sudden, within the weeks before their passing, something beautiful happens and that all changes. And that one thing that happens is that they're greeted by their loved ones, angels, and spirit guides. And to your loved ones, when they see their mom again and their dad again, or their certain loved one, like that child that had passed years earlier, and they see that their mom is at peace, their dad is at peace, that their mom doesn't have illness, their dad looks his best, that child that they lost is perfectly fine, all of a sudden, it's like a sense of relief for them. They're like, oh my God, I can't believe this. And what I can tell you is that sometimes they don't even realize that they're actually seeing these people. They might think that they're dreaming or that those souls came to visit them in a dream. They can't even possibly fathom that's happening right in front of them. But what I want you to know is I've seen this happen so many times, but I've also seen it happen where people who are passing away don't like to talk about this. For example, like I said earlier in this video, there was this woman that I was reading for, and her dad was passing away, and she remembers going to his house and going to visit him, and she would hear him talking in the room. And then when she'd get in the room, no one would be there. She's like, "Dad, who are you talking to?" He's like, "Oh, nobody." She's like, "I heard you talking to somebody." "No, I wasn't talking to nobody." "Yes, you were." And they would go back and forth. And then when I connected with her father in spirit, he had explained to me that he was afraid that he would make his daughter nervous because he was seeing his wife that had passed away years earlier. So this is what's so beautiful, is that your loved ones do have these conversations, even if they don't share it with you. And what I want you to know is that once they get to the other side, something amazing happens. They reunite with their friends, their family members, their pets, but they also go through a life review, which is what my brand new book is about. It's called Don't Wait Till You're Dead. So what happens is before we leave this world, our loved ones in spirit get to see a little glimpse into heaven. They start to see to the other side, because when our soul gets ready to lift out of our body, we start to get glimpses of the spirit world. We start getting glimpses of the other side. We get glimpses of the afterlife. We see our loved ones there. And that's why your loved ones are at peace when they leave this world. So in Don't Wait Till You're Dead, I take you through what actually happens after that moment. Once your soul transitions on, once you take your last breath here in this world and you're guided to the other side, something amazing happens. This tunnel of white light opens, which is actually just, you see the tunnel of white, it looks like a tunnel, but really what it is your soul leaving your body. You start to transition on to the other side where all of a sudden your spirit guide is revealed to you. Your guardian angel is introduced to you. Your spirit guide starts to tell you all the things that you were meant to do here in life, your life purpose, the things that your spirit guide had led you through, the things that your guardian angel had led you through, the ways that your loved ones in spirit have helped you, and you get to see the purpose of your life, the things that you did that were good, the things that you did that were not so good, and you get to reflect back. So don't wait till you're dead. It's all about the life review. If you ever have wondered about what happens immediately upon death, you've got to make sure that you get this book. It's my newest book, and you can order it right now on Amazon, Books A Million, anywhere that you buy books. But I want to share this with you too, because before this all happens, what I also want you to know is you might be questioning, well, what if somebody didn't have that experience? What if somebody before death didn't have a peaceful death? Maybe they were in a car accident. Maybe they died in their sleep. Maybe it was that they passed tragically of a heart attack and they didn't get the experience of anyone knowing that they were sick, anyone knowing that they were dying, anyone knowing that they were transitioning on. Well, what I want you to know is that those souls still have another experience. The same experience actually as a loved one who is passing of illness and knew they were dying, just in a different way. Meaning that if someone's passing of a heart attack, or if someone passes really tragically and we don't get to say goodbye, obviously we don't get to have those physical goodbyes where we don't get to actually hug our loved ones and kiss our loved ones and touch our loved ones. But something does happen that's very similar in those type of passings. And that is, when I've talked to the other side about this, they've explained to me that it's almost like time just stands still here on earth. When all of a sudden someone passes tragically, let's say a motor vehicle accident happens and a person passes away, they close their eyes here in this world, and all of a sudden this new world opens up. And to them, when I've talked to souls and asked them to explain what happens when they die, what happens when they leave this world in a tragic way, what the souls have explained to me is that they didn't even realize that they had died. When someone dies in a motorcycle accident, car accident, tragic event like a heart attack, or maybe just in their sleep, they just think that they're dreaming. They think that the series of events that happened beforehand were just a dream. For example, I had a friend of mine that just recently had a heart attack and unfortunately had to be brought back here in this world. He survived all of this, but don't you know that the moments before that heart attack took place, he couldn't remember. It happened on a Friday. He couldn't remember anything that happened on Friday. All he remembered was just going to bed. Well, what I want you to know is that the same thing happens. The same thing happens with your loved ones. When they're in a motor vehicle accident or a car accident or die in a tragic way, all of those painful events that had happened right before their death suddenly just go away. And to them, it's as if they're waking up in a dream. They wake up in a dream and they start to see their loved ones in spirit. And they think that they're actually dreaming. They don't realize that they've died. They don't realize that they've left this world. They don't realize anything. All they see is their loved ones in spirit and they're excited. Now you might say, oh my God, Matt, this gives me the chills. I know some of you got the chills right now. And you might be saying, how is that beautiful? That sounds scary. Well, it's not like you see on television. Souls aren't going around looking for their bodies, right? Souls aren't going around being like, what happened to me? What took place? To them, it's completely different. To them, it's dreaming. To them, when they have that tragic accident, all of a sudden they're seeing their mom or their dad or their loved one, and they're in a familiar place. So it could be that they're eating dinner with their mother that had passed away in her old house. It could be that they're fishing with their grandfather, and all of a sudden they're just there. And they're like, in that moment, they're like, oh my God, I'm so excited to see you. And then what happens is that those souls explain to them what had happened and that they've actually transitioned on. And don't you know that when that transition on period happens, it's almost like time stays still. So this is all happening when a loved one goes through that tragic event. And don't you know that when this happens, and when your loved ones reunite with those people on the other side and feel like they're in the dreamlike state, and the souls on the other side explain to them what had happened, that they were involved in a tragedy, they were involved in a car wreck, whatever had happened, the first thing that all souls want to know is, well, what's going to happen to my sister? What's going to happen to my mom? What's going to happen to my dad? And the most beautiful thing about transitioning on is that even though those souls didn't get to say goodbye here in this world, in the afterlife, they come back and they watch over you. And not only do they watch over you, they visit you after death. I can't count on my hands how many readings I've done where someone had lost someone tragically. And then the moment that that soul had passed away, they came back to check up on that person. I want to give you an example because that sounds weird how I said it. There was this mother that I was connecting with, and her son was involved in an automobile accident. It was like 3 a.m. Well, don't you know that they had a hard time finding his mother? He had lived in a different state. He was involved in an automobile accident. He had died. It was roughly approximately 3 a.m. Well, the next morning, a police officer showed up at her door and had said that her son was in an automobile accident. What was so crazy is that the mother already had an intuition of this, because at 3 o'clock in the morning, the moment that her son died, she was woken up in the middle of the night out of nowhere, and she heard knocking. She heard like a, nobody was at her door. It wasn't even coming from the door. It was actually coming from above her headboard. And she knew at that moment something was wrong. She didn't know what it was, but it jolted her out of sleep. She felt this weird feeling in her chest, went back to sleep. And the next morning, when the police officer showed up at her door, she knew that it was her son. She knew that he was in trouble, but she also knew that he came back to say goodbye. That was his goodbye to her. Well, you may have had that experience, because when we don't get to say goodbye to our loved ones in the physical world, our loved ones do come through in the afterlife to show us that they're there and with us. And also, they say goodbye to us in their own very way, whether it be through sending a sign, whether it be through a spirit touch point, like hearing knocking, like like that woman experienced with her son, or in a different way to show that they still love us, care about us, and that they are fine. And then what's so beautiful is that later on, they even use a psychic medium like myself to come through and to communicate with all of you once they get settled in heaven. And that's why there's a little bit of a transition time on the other side as well. When you wonder why sometimes it takes a little bit of time for a loved one to come through with a sign, to reach us in a dream, or to come through to a medium like myself, it's because sometimes souls aren't ready. And what I mean by that is, it's not that souls aren't at peace. It's not that souls aren't enjoying their time on the other side. It's that when souls first pass away, there's a lot that happens. They have to get used to their spirit body. Remember, we go from a physical body to our soul, right? We have to learn how to communicate from our new world, which is the spirit world, here into this world. Your loved ones in spirit actually have to learn to send you signs, how to send signs. They meet their spirit guide, their guardian angel. Your loved ones take on divine jobs on the other side. They choose how they're going to watch over you, who they're going to watch over. They look into your life. There's so many things that happen. And they also go through their life review, which I could tell you all about in this video, but I wrote a whole book on this. It's called Don't Wait Till You're Dead. And that's why your loved ones in spirit have so much to share with you during readings. Because when your loved ones transition on and their life flashes before them and they see everything in life, your loved ones realize one thing. They realize the things that they could have done differently in this world. They learn the things that they could have made good on. They realize what their life purpose was. They realize the missions that they succeeded in and the missions that they failed at. So in Don't Wait Till You're Dead, I bring you through the life review. And guess what? In this book, you actually go and get to do your own life review. Because imagine if you could learn here in this world what your life purpose was. If you could learn here in this world why you were put here on earth, what you're meant to do, what you should be doing right now. Well, we learn this at the end of our life, but there's a way that you can learn this right now. There's a way that you can learn with that you can align and learn with your spirit guide, your angels, and your loved ones. So Don't Wait Till You're Dead is all about that. It's all about your mission here on earth and what the souls have discovered on the other side. But I also want you to know this. I want you to know that you continue to have a bond with your loved ones on the other side. And what I want you to know is that even if you didn't get to say goodbye, even if you didn't get to be there in the moment of a loved one's passing, they're there and with you. I've seen this happen so many times during the COVID-19 pandemic, when so many people were in the hospitals and the hospitals were filled and people couldn't say goodbye to their loved ones. They couldn't say goodbye to their loved ones in the nursing home, couldn't see their loved ones. People were so scared, saying, Matt, was my mom alone? My mom must have been so scared. She must have been so upset because I wasn't there. Well, what I want you to know is this. I did this reading one time and it changed my life, so I want to share with all of you. There was this woman who had lost her mother. Her mother had COVID-19. Her mother went into the hospital and sadly never came back. Her mother was so afraid of hospitals. She was so afraid of anything to do with doctors or nurses or sickness. It just made her so scared. And her daughter was talking to her every day until one day she went into a coma and they would not let her daughter into the hospital to say goodbye because of the pandemic. Well, when her mother went to the other side, her mother came through in a reading with me. The woman had attended one of my online reading events, and her mother had said, it's okay, your dad was there. I wasn't alone. I wasn't scared. I wasn't upset. I wasn't angry. Your father was there. He was there and with me. And that reading instantly brought her comfort because she spent so many years of her life, it was actually 2 years, 2 years of her life feeling guilty, feeling sad, feeling depressed, thinking, I didn't get to be there. My mom was so scared. My mom must have been so upset. When really she had this amazing opportunity to catch up with her husband who had passed years earlier and also her mother who had passed away. And don't you know that those souls were with her? She was not alone in the hospital. And what I want you to know is that if you've ever been in one of those situations where maybe you were trying to get to the hospital to say goodbye to a loved one, or maybe you were rushing to go and see your loved one, but it was too late and they left this world without you getting to say goodbye, what I can tell you is this, is that on the other side, your loved ones are able to rewind time. They're able to see things that they didn't get to see here in this world, and your loved ones know the last conversations that you had with them. Whether you sat with their physical body right after their passing, whether you didn't get to say goodbye and you cried in your car, whether you didn't even know that they passed and you found out 3 weeks later through a family member, whatever you were feeling in your heart, whatever was going through your mind, your loved ones heard. Because when you think about them, when you speak to them, in your head, it's a personal conversation between you and between them. So that being said, that's what I do every day. As a medium, my job isn't just about the readings. It's about putting you back in touch with your loved ones, getting the conversation finished. Because I don't care if you lost someone peacefully or if you lost someone tragically. There's never an end to the conversation. There's always new things that you want to tell your loved ones, and there's always new things that your loved ones want to share and tell you. They do this through signs, but they also use me to do this. So what I want you to know is that if you're missing a loved one right now, if you didn't get to finish the conversation, and if you would like a reading from me, make sure that you come and see me. I have online readings that I just added to my website. I'm doing a couple a month. So if you go to my website and click on online readings, that's where you can join me live on Zoom for an online reading. And I just announced tour dates as well. I am coming all throughout the United States and Canada this year. So you've got to head to my website, meetmattfraser.com, and take a look. I'm coming to New York. I'm coming to California. I'm coming to Massachusetts. I'm coming to Connecticut. I'm coming to Texas. I'm coming to so many different places. Just head to meetmattfraser.com. And I can't forget Las Vegas. Las Vegas is the best event that I do because it's the most intimate tour stop that I do all tour. So if you want to join me in Las Vegas, I want to say Las Vegas, excuse me, my East Coast is coming up. If you want to join me in Las Vegas, just go to meetmattfraser.com and click on online readings to learn, click on tour dates to learn how you can come and join me, or click on online readings if you want to join me live online. And what I also want you to know is this. Remember, your loved ones can hear you. So whether you talk to them out loud or in your head, whatever feels comfortable to you, have conversations with your loved ones. Your loved ones in spirit love hearing from you just as much as you love hearing from them. And I'm going to leave you with that.